You who wander, you who thirst, I offer you this Bodhi mind. Calling all you hungry spirits, everywhere through endless time. Calling all you hungry hearts, all the lost and left behind. Gather round and share this meal. Your joy and sorrow, I make it mine. That's how the Gate of Sweet Nectar starts. And Bernie Glassman, Roshi, talked Krishna Das into doing the music for this. And are most of you familiar with Krishna Das? Yeah, he's the kirtan singer, Hindu devotional music. And I didn't realize this till I looked it up last night, that he is referred to as the rock star of yoga. And I've heard him live actually in a yoga class. We had him here in San Luis Obispo, I think. Anyway, that was at the Grammys, and he was nominated in 2013 for a Grammy Award. I had the honor, this was for Bernie's memorial in Yonkers, New York. Krishna Das was there, and we did the gate. And so I was doaning for that, for the gate, and was on stage with Krishna Das, and it was really powerful. So Jeff Bridges was there as well.
Yeah.
The dude.
Cool. He's not related to Ram Das.
No, but they actually went to India and had the same guru. Yeah, the same guru. And Ram Das is really good friends, was really good friends with Bernie Roshi as well. So, good morning. Happy Easter. Happy Easter. And yesterday, there's different calendars out there, but Eve Marco, who was married to Roshi Bernie, had said that yesterday was the last day of Passover. So that, of course, celebrates the exodus of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. So happy Pesach as well for the Passover. And thank you for the gift of your presence. Of course, we have the tradition when we're offering Dharma talks and other programs to acknowledge and honor the Native American heritage, our Native American heritage. And for over 10,000 years, the northern Chumash, the Yaktutu Yaktahini, that's how they say their name, they walked this very land that we sit on this morning. And my hunch is they probably walked the Bob Jones Trail before it was called that, along the creek here, with the creek running out to the ocean. And Yaktutu is a phrase in their language which means the dance of life. And it's interesting, in the gate, and you'll hear all about this, we actually have a section that's called the Dance of Joy, because it's a celebration. So I'd like to acknowledge and pay my deep respect to the northern Chumash people and their elders and ancestors, past, present, and future. I acknowledge and offer deep gratitude to this land, the northern Chumash, and this land and the water that supports us all as we're gathered here right now together. And I invite you to join me in that acknowledgement, putting our hands together in gasho and bowing. Yeah, I think of Rinkai. You know, Rinkai has a practice, standing meditation, where he stands out in the garden, and he was explaining this to us a couple weeks ago. He's been doing this for years, but he went into a little more detail. And he's in the same spot, and he's in front of a tree, and he's actually, as he does this day after day, he's watching the tree grow and blossoms come out. And that made me, as soon as he said that, that made me think of the movie that Koshin and Conch and I watched. It was part of a class on racism that was kind of connected with the White Heron Sangha. So do you remember that scene, the Native Americans?
Yeah.
And there's a batch of them standing around and they're meditating, looking at this tree for hours and hours. So that's pretty powerful, I think. So thus have I heard. Most of you will recognize that phrase from a lot of the sutras, the scripts. It starts off, thus have I heard. And it's usually attributed to Ananda, who had memorized everything that the Buddha had said. And so this is the way of a seal of authenticity. Thus I have heard. He would start off. In this case, I'm using that context in context of what I heard, mostly from Roshi Bernie. So what he passed on. And Roshi Bernie Roshi, had offered workshops on the Gate. This was back in 2015. And he did one at ZCLA, that was the first one. He did another one at Upaya Zen Center, where Roshi Joan Halifax is. And then he did one in Europe as well. But he did 3 in that year. He was 76 at the time. And I'll have to say, we had a blast. He is so much fun to be with. A real mensch. So there were a lot of laughs, but he explained things well. So 2 weeks ago, we saw a film that we had made at ZCLA back in 2004. Bernie wasn't with us at that point, but he was. But it involved, as you remember, interviews with Bernie Roshi and Roshi Gyoku, my teacher, and Michael O'Keefe. Michael O'Keefe is an actor. Actually, he was married to Bonnie Raitt for a number of years. And he helped to kind of produce the whole thing. So if you remember that film, you'll probably understand it's quite a production that we put on at UCLA. There's actually 11 positions involved with that. There's the celebrant, and we call, instead of a fish in it, because it really is a celebration, we call them a celebrant. Who's the officiant for that. Jisha, Doan, chanter, Densho bell, we have the Densho bell outside. The Soge, we're used to most of those. The Conch, I just blew, that's calling all the hungry spirits. Taiko drum, during part of it. Tibetan drum, which it's got an interesting background as well. It was one of the teachers brought that from her trip to India, to Tibet, sorry. And those of you that have been there, you've seen that, beating that at the very beginning of service. Shingetsu, Sensei Shingetsu. And then there's 2 Denons as well. And then all told, there's 10 people in the Ryabon. Now some of those positions are also on the Ryabon. And the Ryabon, we don't really do that here. But the Ryabon is, there's the Haishiki. So the Ryabon would be people standing on the side of the Ryabon, of the Haishiki, right? And traditionally in a monastery, these are like, the important people. The abbot's there, the tenzo, probably the most important person's there. The administrator, I think the head accountant or something is there. But it's all the people that are kind of running the show in a monastery. We're not there quite yet. But that said, we've pretty much adopted all the liturgical services that we do at ZCLA, all the ones that I've been taught. And that includes the morning service, which we did, and that's typically done every morning at the monastery. We take Monday and Tuesday off at ZCLA. I try to do these every morning at the Los Osos Hermitage. But we do the vast majority of them. I brought our liturgical calendar, I was checking things out, and we do all the, the parinirvana service for the Buddha, for his dying. We just did the birthday service last week. We do in December, we do his enlightenment, right? And all these other New Year's Eve services, so we pretty much do them all. And these are all typical of a monastery in Japan. So if you go to Japan, you'll feel right at home, except that they're all Japanese, so maybe you won't. But anyway, I think you can appreciate my hesitation after you saw that movie of doing the gate here. It's a big production, and we don't have the folks, the resources to do that, or so I thought. And I wanted to share one memory I have. The Doan position for this. This is the most challenging Doan position, for the most challenging service for the Doan. You have bells. Do you remember seeing this? You've got you're hitting the bells, and it's at a rapid pace. And so, Sensei Dharma Joy I was in training to do that. And Gemon, those of you who remember Gemon from the German priest, she was there, she worked with me, and I was working tirelessly at this. I really had it down. And then it became a thing. Sensei DJ, said, well, you ready? Do you want to do the Doan this Sunday? And I said, no, I'm not quite ready. This went on for an entire year. I was so ready, but it became a game. He was wanting me to do it, and I said, no, don't make me do it. Well, it's my favorite Doan position. It's a lot of fun. But as I said, I was kind of hesitant about doing this, and then came to the realization that, we do this on all the bearing witness retreats. So I remember absolutely doing it at Auschwitz-Birkenau, the concentration camp in Poland. And they didn't have, there were a lot of people there, but people not trained in positions. But we did. And then we do these on the street retreats as well. And I can remember being in San Francisco, in the Castro district, on this corner, a corner right by a gas station. And we had gone out begging and brought the feast back, and we did the gate right there on the sidewalks in the Castro district. Another year we did it in front of the B of A building. And then we did it in Los Angeles, just on the streets. And it dawned on me that we can do this. We can do it right here. We may not have all the fanfare of the ZCLA production, but we can do this. So we will, in the very near future. So the Gate of Sweet Nectar, Kanromon. Kan means gate, and I may have mentioned this a couple weeks ago. That should be familiar to some of you that are doing koan study. The Mumon Kan, gate. So that's, of course, that's the gateless gate. Ro translates as dew, and in the Buddhist sense, it's the same feeling as nectar, and that's how Roshi Bernie translated it. And then man, collection of words or phrases, a verse. So today, I just wanted to do a little bit about the history, about how we got to the gate the way we present it nowadays. And it's quite a story. And then that's all I'm going to do today. And then in the next class, and but it's not really a teisho or even a dharma talk, it's more like a lecture. And then in the other talk or talks, we'll see how far we get next time. But we'll go through all the the lines in the gate. And I'll kind of explain the whole format about what's going on. And then there's all these intricacies involved, so that'll be fun. Legend ties this all the way back to the Buddha, believe it or not. There were two of his chief disciples, Moggallana and Shariputra, were two of his two chief disciples. And Moggallana is said to have had psychic powers. And I brought the book here. There's a book out, The Great Disciples of the Buddha, Their Lives, Their Works, Their Legacy. And you can read all about him. And Ananda's in there, but it's a wonderful book. I've used it a lot for research on talks. So Moggallana has these psychic powers. And this goes back to some old sutras, Yulan Pen Sutra and the Sutra on Offering Bowls to Repay Kindness. That's a great name. So Moggallana has a vision of his mother screaming for food. She's in the hell realm. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but the Avicii hell, that's like the bottom of the hell realm. And in the hell realm, there's all different hell realms, right? And so she's hanging upside down with this huge distended belly, breathing flames. So he tries to feed her, because he's got psychic power, so he takes himself down into the hell realm. And he tries to feed her, to help her. And the rice, as he's trying to feed her, turns to coals. So she can't get any sustenance. He can't do it. And so he goes to the Buddha to ask for the Buddha's help. And the Buddha tells him that the roots of your mother's sins are deep and tenacious. You cannot help her by yourself, even though he's got all these magical powers. He said you must rely on the spiritual power of the whole assembled Sangha. So offerings are made by the assembly to relieve the sufferings of those in the hell realm, to relieve the suffering of the hungry ghosts. So it's a group effort, right? And what can we learn from this? Yeah, it takes a village, right? So it was so interesting, when Bernie was at ZCLA, he was ready to tell that story, and he was thinking that, he was saying it was Ananda's mom. And he wasn't quite sure. Roshi Gyoku corrected him to let him know that indeed it was Moggallana instead of Ananda. But then I listened to, I think it was 4 hours of tape on the workshop at ZCLA and 5 sessions at Upaya. And then listened to Roshi Ekkyo from New York. And she was giving a talk at Upaya, and she told both of these origin stories. So there is one, certainly, with Moggallana, but there is one as well with Ananda. But it's a little bit of a different story. But they are all kind of the background to the gate. In Ananda's story, this goes back to another sutra, the Yogacara offering service, or Yogacara burning mouth service. Aren't those wild? So one day, Ananda, and of course Ananda was one of the Buddha's 10 great disciples, was his attendant for over 20 years, with him day and night. So Ananda was staying up late at night, and suddenly a horrifying ghost named Burning Mouth appeared and said to Ananda, "You will die in 3 days and will fall into the realm of hungry ghost." So this ghost was particularly hideous. His body was emaciated. In his mouth burned a hot and foul-smelling fire. His neck was thin as a needle. His hair was messy. And he had claws that were long and sharp. Ananda was a little terrified of this ghoulish figure. And he asked the ghost how he could escape from the suffering. And the ghost told him that the next day he must distribute 1 bushel of food and drink to hundreds of thousands of ghosts and to hundreds of thousands of Brahmins. If he did so, Ananda's lifespan would increase and Flaming Mouth would be released from the realm of ghosts and be reborn as a god. Kind of a tall task.
Yeah.
So after hearing from the ghost, Ananda immediately, like our other story, went to check things out with the Buddha and asked him for help. So it's said that the Buddha consoled Ananda and taught him a dharani, which holds significant magical powers and could fulfill the ghost's wish. And the origin of most of our food offerings that we do in a lot of our services can be traced back to this particular sutra from where this came. And soon you will hear one of these dharanis in the Gate of Sweet Nectar. It's a section that's called Dharani of Expansion Prayer upon the Food and Drink. So it's expanding this food because the celebrant is got just a little bit up on the altar, a little bit of food, but this Dharani expands it to be able to feed all the hungry ghosts. No makusaroba tata gyata baro ki te om san ba san bara un. That's the chant, and you'll hear that, and you'll learn that. So what about these hungry ghosts? They're a part of the Buddhist cosmology. Many of you have heard this, the 6 realms. The God realm, and this is the state of bliss and pleasure where beings enjoy great happiness. It's a cool realm. The demigod realm, a realm of jealousy and conflict, where beings are powerful but they often engage in battle. The human realm. This is considered the most favorable for spiritual practice due to the fact that we have the balance of pleasure and suffering. And it's said that this is kind of the only realm that you can actually achieve awakening. The animal realm. We know all about that, right? We all have pets, and we know about animals in our world. The hungry ghost realm. So this is the realm of constant craving and dissatisfaction, where beings suffer from insatiable desires. And that's the hungry ghost that we're talking about. And then the hell realm, the state of intense suffering and torment, where beings, it's said, experience the consequences of their negative actions. So these realms reflect the cycle of samsara, where it is said that they are reborn based on their karma. Hakuin Zenji, many of you know or remember, is a Rinzai, a powerful Rinzai teacher back in the 18th century. And he was actually credited with reviving Rinzai Zen at the time. He regarded bodhicitta, working for the benefit of others, as the ultimate concern of Zen training. Isn't that wonderful?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like an early Bernie Glassman Roshi, serving others. Anyway, he was asked, so what's the best realm to be in? He said the hell realm, because the only way is up. Hakuin Zenshi. Roshi Enkyo from New York, that I mentioned earlier, she trained with Maizumi Roshi, and she asked him about these hungry ghosts. And he said, without hesitation, he said, they're 1 foot tall, their hair stood straight up, and their breath stinks.
Yeah.
And they're also called pretas, P-R-E-T-A-S. And they hung around toilets and ate shit.
Oh, okay.
So it sounds pretty far-fetched, right? How do we relate to all of this? And it all sounds like a fantasy or myth from the distant past. But can you see these so-called realms in your own life right now? Think about that. Throughout our life, things change, right? We're not the same people we were 20 years ago. We're not the same people we were yesterday. So there is kind of this migration between these realms. And think about that. I mean, you think of the God realm, there are times when you're just totally elated, right? Things are just going smoothly. It's great. The demigod realm, where people often engage in battles, conflict. The human realm. The animal realm, our reptilian brain. That's enacted in us. Often without good results. The hungry ghost realm. This is the realm of craving and dissatisfaction. Never fully satisfied. Can you relate to that? We're hungry for some enlightenment, some peace. Our insatiable desire for food, for money, for sex. So we have demons right here and now. They really live in us. And they're all over. I can think of a number of them in Washington, D.C. But we have people suffering in our world right now. There is starvation in our world right now. The administration, in its infinite wisdom, has cut off aid to so many who, as a result, are now suffering. So this is really in our life. Some of you know Ikkyu, who was this eccentric Japanese Zen monk, a poet from the 15th century. He wrote a poem called Starvation in 1461. The pain and hunger penetrates my body. The hungry ghosts I see are real people. Throughout all its existence, the body is a house of flame. Misery mounts to the highest heaven. So those were a couple stories about where this kind of started. Roshi, Bernie Roshi, had said Menza in the 1800s from the Shingon school added tantric measurements, elements, to the gate. Because originally it was just a few lines, just a few dharanis that Buddha had given. And I don't think it was Menza. I don't think Menza was involved with the Shingon school. But the Shingon school was the tantric branch of Zen in Japan. And we most often think of tantric as coming from Tibetan, the Tibetan tradition. But we actually have our own tantric school, the Shingon school. And this was founded by Kobo Daishi, or Kukai, in the early 9th century. But the point of it is that these tantric elements were added to the gate. And then we find them, those of you that have read D.T. Suzuki, some of his work, he has one, I had to dust my book off, called The Manual of Zen Buddhism. And you can see the tantric elements in that service. And it's in a chapter called The Prayer on the Occasion of Feeding the Hungry Ghosts. So this expanded the service. Then Bernie Roshi came along. And he took years in translating this from Japanese. He worked with Maizumi Roshi for years on this. Of course, it was all in Japanese, and he said when he first heard it, he didn't understand it at all. But regardless, he kind of fell in love with it. He fell in love with this service. And then Maizumi Roshi gave him complete leeway to change it as he wanted to, as he saw fit. He told Bernie often that, yeah, I've done what I can, but I'm Japanese. You have to create American Zen. So do with this what you will. And he did. He took it and added a lot of things. And we'll go over, so I'll show some of these things when we go into the actual service. He added a meditation. Most of you are familiar with the metta meditation. He's added elements of that. He added a number of things from his Jewish tradition, because he's Jewish. And he totally widened the outreach. Initially, this was, of course, for those that have died, right? We go back to our original story, that was somebody's mom. But it was expanded to include all those that had died. Well, Roshi Bernie took it further than Moggallana's mom. And he included it to, he expanded it to include all hungry spirits. He included it to deal with those that had died and nobody knew about. And this actually goes back before Bernie. In Japan, centuries ago, the men would be at war and they might die and they wouldn't hear about it back home for a year. And so it included them. He increased it to include all those that had been forgotten or neglected by society, and all the aspects of ourselves that have been neglected, and all aspects of Mother Earth that we are neglecting. In the post that I did just the other day about the weekend offerings, I quoted Bernie, where he said, in the gate we are inviting all the hungry spirits to join us. We are also inviting aspects of ourselves that we are not dealing with, and all aspects of society that aren't being dealt with. So the next talk will cover the elements of the gate. We'll talk about the flow of the service, what it all means. We'll talk about all these magical dharanis or mantras and all these special mudras, hand positions that the celebrant uses. And these were all secret for years and years. And most of them were done under the Kanromon. There's all these things, and they're supposed to be very, very energetic. Some of them are calling the hungry spirits in. So we'll deal in that. And then we'll also look at the 5 Buddhist wisdom families, because they're involved in that, in the new gate. And it's quite beautiful. I hope you will fall in love with it as I have. It's my absolute favorite service. The closing verse, which is actually taken from a Jewish poem. And I need to get the Jewish prayer. Bernie oftentimes during the workshops was saying it's from Psalms, and I don't think it is, but I think it's from another Jewish prayer, and Rabbi Singer, who's a Zen teacher, did the translation. This is our life, the length of our days. Day and night we meditate upon it. This is our life, the length of our days. Day and night we meditate upon it. That's how it ends. Questions? Comments?
Can't wait to do it.
Me either. Yeah, we're calling in all the hungry spirits, which are including ourselves, and manifesting as the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, looking at the 5 wisdom families. We actually give the precepts during this in just 2 lines. We'll talk about that. We have the 16, right, Bodhisattva precepts. The Theravada, they have that was the 5 precepts. So I'll have to look at my notes to see where this comes from, but there's one tradition it comes from, and there is 2 lines. And basically, you're giving the precepts to the hungry spirits, the hungry ghosts. Anything else coming up?
Just briefly, when you do the abbreviated versions, like on street retreats, do you have the instruments? Because I remember that was the most, demonstrative when I've done it a couple of times at LA. And I'm just curious.
Yeah, we have bells.
Okay.
We're going to actually do a more elaborate gate than we do on the streets, because we have the instruments here. We've got it on, so we can get some of you guys trained on that.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do a little bit more. We have a conch. The one that we had in Yonkers was this little tiny thing.
Kazoo.
It was pretty funny, but it worked. But so we do have a lot of the instruments. We don't have all the people. We have the 11 people. We've only got 6 here today.
Yeah.
But we can make it work.
We could get 11.
We'll make it work.
So one of the things that's clear from your talk this morning, and thank you, Roshi, for your talk and your lecture on the origins in particular. You said it started out as a dharani, and then it was elaborated on somewhat, and that Bernie Roshi translated it from Japanese, and then other elements were added. And I think I know the answer to this question, and maybe you're going to talk about this in your future talk as well. But does it continue to evolve, and is that part of what you like about this particular service?
Yes, it has evolved. It's evolved since we had the workshop. Really evolved since the 2004 movie, when we put that together. Pretty serious, remember? If you remember seeing that, it's very serious. Well, now we have, at the apex of this thing, we have a dance of joy. We've added instruments. So everybody in the Sangha has an instrument. So at a certain point, you're banging things, just all sorts of things. There's bells and stuff, and everybody participates in that. And then there is literally a dance of joy at the climax of the gate, because it's supposed to be a celebration.
Yeah.
We're feeding all these hungry spirits in ourselves and everywhere. All those that have been left behind, those that are marginalized. I often envision the inmates that I work with over the years when I think about them. I often envision the homeless that I've been with on the streets. And I weep oftentimes at the gate, because all these things come up. Seeing the people in India and Bangladesh that I've seen, all the suffering going on, it's can be overwhelming. So yes, it continues to, and Bernie has given us his blessing as well. And he says, each one of the places, the temples that do this, they're going to have their own way of doing it, and that's fine. We don't have a taiko drum yet, so we'll use a kugyo instead. Anything else?
It reminds me of ways to relate to the levels of suffering within me, so I can relate to everyone else. And realizing the delusion, that I can't easily solve my own problems. Just think it away, or go have a latte or something, yeah, so it's a real, it's almost, I envisioned having a magnet board like those magnet calendars, you can move the little magnet to which level you're stuck in that day.
Yeah, which realm you're in.
Yeah.
A lot of people liken it to communion, Christian communion. Because you're feeding. It's really fun. The officiant does this mixture up at the altar, and then in essence you're feeding. There's another temple that what they do, they have the kids involved in it. So the kids all come up and they get candy, and they hand candy out to everybody. Isn't that sweet?
Sweet nectar.
So maybe we'll add our own elements as we go along.
When you were talking about everybody having instruments, I was thinking of those multi-classroom packs you can get for kids and have all these different instruments for kids.
Yes. Actually, we need to get those, because I really do want to
They
get.
have triangles and drums
Yes.
and flutes and all kinds of things. And we have
Yeah, some of the things we use at New Year's Eve. That's
Oh,
what
yeah.
What are those things called? But
Noise
Oh, yeah,
makers.
spare
Yeah.
them, yeah. But you can get them, just multi-packs for kids.
so we'll need to do that as we celebrate. Okay. We'll say it's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Numberless beings, I vow to serve them. Inexhaustible delusions, I vow to end them. Boundless dharmas, I vow to practice them. Unsurpassable Buddha way, I vow to embody it. Numberless beings, I vow to serve them. Inexhaustible delusions, I vow to end them. Boundless dharmas, I vow to practice them. Unsurpassable Buddha way, I vow to embody it. Numberless beings, I vow to serve them. Inexhaustible delusions, I vow to end them. Boundless dharmas, I vow to practice them.